On Africa 24 English, the African Union Journal is presented to you by Afreximbank.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us for this new edition of the African Union Journal. Today we delve into one of the continent's most pressing priorities, security and conflict resolution. From internal insurgencies to cross-border tensions, Africa faces complex challenges that demand bold, coordinated and African-led responses. But amidst these difficulties lies hope through diplomacy, regional cooperation and community-driven peace building. In this program, ladies and gentlemen, we explore the roots of conflict, highlight successful resolutions, and examine the AU's role in fostering lasting peace. African leaders gather in Lomé, Togo on October 11th to 12th, 2025 for the Lomé Peace and Security Forum to discuss the continent's major security challenges. The meeting highlighted the need for collective action and strengthened cooperation to ensure peace and stability amid a rapidly changing global context. More on this report with Sarah Ajay.
Gathered in Lomé, Togo, African leaders call for the collective action to address the rising security challenges facing the continent. The Lomé Peace and Security Forum held on October 11 to 12, 2025 under the theme African Confronting Complex Security Challenges, How to Strengthen and Sustain Peace and Stability in a Changing World, emphasized the need for a more coordinated and innovative approach.
To create a security and peace, it requires your neighbors to be aligned with you. You have to have a diplomatic muscle that, or reach out to your regional and also international community. And also you have to have a lot of patience to reconcile differences.
Among the main issues discussed were the intensification of armed conflict, the terrorist threat, and the humanitarian crisis caused by massive population displacement. In 2024, nearly 45 million people were forced to flee from their homes across the continent, a 14% increase compared to 2023, highlighting the urgent need to implement effective operational measures. The first thing to do is to carry out a cleanup if you want to rid Africa of this, because it is not only the Sahel countries that are affected. We once thought the same, and we could never have imagined that it will happen to us soon. In response to the surge in conflict and socio-political crisis, the African Union is stepping up its efforts to preserve the continent's stability. Through its Peace and Security Council, it conducts military and diplomatic operations aimed at preventing and resolving conflicts, as seen in mediation initiatives in Sudan and Ethiopia in July 2024. The second thing is to make sure that countries with military bases leave. We removed these military bases, and I can tell you that the first benefit we got was that our army became stronger and gained autonomy. Policy makers, experts, representatives of regional organizations, and international partners to jointly discuss African responses to the multiple threats affecting peace and stability on the continent.
In 2025, as Africa faces serious security crisis in the Sahel, the Great Lakes region, the Horn of Africa, as well as in Libya, Nigeria, and Central African Republic, the Lomé Peace and Security Forum emphasized the urgent need to strengthen the continent's strategic autonomy. Participants highlighted that sustainable security depends on the control of resources, industrial and technological development, social inclusion, and the active participation of youth and women. Marie-Raphael Ntolo to throw more light on these takes.
And the Horn of Africa remains marked by ethnic and jihadist conflicts, while Libya, Nigeria, and Central African Republic experience armed violence and the presence of rebel groups. In this context, the Lomé Peace and Security Forum held on October 11th to 12th, 2025 emphasized the need to strengthen Africa's strategic autonomy. The conclusions highlighted that the continent must take control of its peace and security by relying on its resources, industrial and technological capacities, while integrating social and and economic dimensions.
L'autonomie stratégique n'est pas un choix ni une option, c'est une obligation. On n'a pas parlé d'indépendance.
Strategic autonomy is not a choice or an option. It is an obligation. We did not speak of Africa's security independence, but rather of autonomy. Because when you look closely, Madam Prime Minister spoke yesterday about the need to transform our countries and reduce poverty. All of these goals are only possible if we can ensure the security of our nations. Look at the world's two economic superpowers, the United States and China. They were also the first to establish strong military capabilities. This shows that we cannot have economic prosperity if we do not have the capacity to defend ourselves.
Quand on n'a pas la capacité de se défendre.
The forum also highlighted the integrated dimension of security, social inclusion, education, employment, and justice are considered essential for lasting peace. African authorities believe that the participation of youth and women is key lever to strengthen the legitimacy and effectiveness of security policies.
On est ouvert pour la coopération avec tous les pays qui sont.
We are open to cooperation with all countries that are committed to peace and justice. We are ready to work with all nations that respect the dignity of our people and place the higher interest of our population first. It is no longer acceptable for our resources to serve the prosperity of other countries.
La prospérité des autres pays.
And review their military agreements to preserve their sovereignty. They must also strengthen their governance and regional coordination capacities, particularly within the African Union and sub-regional organizations.
L'Afrique, pour moi, a le déposit le plus important.
For me, Africa has the most important deposit in the world. We cannot possess all these resources and still be afraid of how to finance our own development. I believe there is also a question of political commitment, but all of this will work only when foundations are clear enough and when reliable relationships are established between people and between communities.
Les populations, entre les communautés.
The Lomé Peace and Security Forum 2025 also provided an opportunity for African decision makers to reaffirm that Africa's strategic autonomy is not merely a military objective, but a comprehensive project of sovereignty, development, and resilience. The concrete implementation of these recommendations will determine the continent's ability to position itself as an independent actor capable of ensuring its own security and building lasting peace.
Technological innovation is the key driver of social inclusion. It offers crucial opportunities to marginalized populations. Thanks to e-learning platforms, education is becoming more and more accessible even in the most remote areas in Africa. Similarly, connected health technologies enable remote medical monitoring, thereby reducing inequalities in healthcare. Finally, these technologies advances such as job placement applications greatly facilitate access to employment for underrepresented groups. Details on these takes with Lucrece Mbogol.
Technological innovation is essential for promoting social inclusion by providing opportunities for marginalized populations. Thanks to tools such as e-learning platforms, education is becoming more accessible even in remote areas. Also, connected health technologies enable remote medical monitoring, which helps to reduce inequalities in healthcare. Finally, advances such as job placement applications facilitate access to employment for underrepresented groups.
Notre stratégie de transformation digitale donc a 3 piliers.
Our digital transformation strategy has 3 pillars, and for each pillar there are 3 programs. So the first pillar is that we set ourselves well when we talk about digital transformation. We need fundamentals. And there are 3 fundamentals. The first is infrastructure. As you can imagine, there can be no artificial intelligence without connectivity or electricity, or indeed without a data center. So the first program, when we talk about digital transformation and want to be serious about it, is infrastructure availability.
Ou bien sans électricité d'ailleurs.
The World Bank granted Togo $100 million in 2024 for its digital transformation, aiming to improve access to high-speed internet and strengthen technological skills. The project will connect 8,000 public institutions. It's crucial to ensure universal accessibility and digital inclusion, particularly through AI for people with disabilities, in order to build a fairer and more equitable world.
I thought I should ask the forum today, when we talk about peace governance in the age of AI, how do we govern what we don't have? How do we govern what we don't own? How do we govern what we don't make? So these are some of the pertinent questions that, as African states, we should ask ourselves. over and over until we see actual results. When we talk about governance, we are talking about guardrails, we are talking about controls.
The World Bank has launched a digital transformation agenda for Eastern and Southern Africa, aims to democratize access to and use of digital services for more than 180 billion people by 2032. Despite the potential of digitalization for economic growth and poverty reduction, this region is the slowest in the world in terms of digital progress. In 2023, only 64% had access to broadband and 24% used the internet, revealing a significant digital divide.
L'intelligence artificielle est une puissance d'inférence, ce qui veut dire que c'est un outil.
Artificial intelligence is a power of inference, which means that it's a tool that we can use in the best possible way, just as we can use it differently. In other words, there is a power of inference that allows us to use the power of inference. So in this case, it's a matter of supervision, particularly ethical supervision, and this is what will enable us to take advantage of the opportunities or to use artificial intelligence in the wrong way.
Des opportunités.
In sub-Saharan Africa, digital parity has risen by 10% in 10 years to reach 60%. Uganda is the regional leader, rising from 31.7% in 2013 to 76.1% in 2023, thanks to digital inclusion programs for women. The integration of technologies and social actors is crucial for autonomy and efficiency, but must manage the risk of digital divide and dehumanization. A coordinated approach, training, adaptation of system, consideration of social, cultural, and ethical impacts is necessary for an inclusive society, requiring strategic vision and strong commitment.
On to this week's regional news featured by Ruth Musi looks at East Africa, who has agreed to accelerate digital integration and reduce broadband costs. SADC finalizes its labor market observatory, and the African Union trains young people in governance and peace building.
9 East African countries are stepping up efforts to harmonize radio spectrum management to accelerate regional digital integration. Meeting on the 20th of October 2025 in Kigali, Rwanda, under the auspices of the East African Community, IGAD, and the World Bank, leaders and experts adopted several measures to facilitate broadband deployment, reduce access costs, and prepare for the arrival of 5G and 6G technologies. This initiative, part of the East Africa Regional Digital Integration Program, aims to create a single, more inclusive and competitive digital market, a major step towards a better connected and more resilient East Africa in a global digital economy. The Secretariat of the Southern African Development Community (SADC), in collaboration with the International Labour Organization, held the final technical workshop for the implementation of the SADC Labour Market Observatory in Johannesburg from the 20th to the 24th of October 2025. This regional system aims to harmonize and centralize data on employment and decent work across member states to support evidence-based policy making. The workshop concluded with the uploading and validation of national data sets ahead of the official launch of the LMIS Start platform. For SADC Secretariat, this initiative represents a major step towards improved labor governance and knowledge-based economic integration in the region. The African Union Commission, through its Department of Political Affairs, Peace and Security, organized a capacity-building program for young Africans in Tripoli, Libya, from the 20th to the 22nd of October 2025. The initiative, held in partnership with the North Africa Regional Capability and the African Center for the Constructive Resolution of Disputes, aimed to promote democratic governance, peace and security through the shared values of the EU and the frameworks of Agenda 2063 and the African Charter on Democracy. Through interactive workshops and leadership activities, participants strengthening their skills in governance, advocacy, and conflict resolution, enhancing youth participation in political processes, and contributing to the building of a more inclusive and peaceful Africa.
The 5th Turkey-Africa Forum, held in Istanbul from October 17th to 19th, 2025, highlighted the shared ambition to increase bilateral trade from $40 to $50 billion by 2080. Priority areas identified to achieve this goal include industrialization, energy, health, technology, and women's entrepreneurship. On this occasion, Turkey reaffirmed its commitment to making Africa a strategic investment zone. Sarah Adje tells us more on this event.
up from around 40 billion in 2024. This intensification of economic relations built on a momentum started 2 decades ago, marked by an unprecedented diplomatic and economic expansion. Turkey, which increased its presence from 12 embassies in Africa in 2003 to 44 today, reaffirmed its commitment to making the continent a strategic axis of its international development. The first step is strengthening cooperation in the technological field. Secondly, strengthening cooperation in the agricultural sector. And finally, reinforcing direct private partnerships. Priority areas of this collaboration are industrialization, energy, health, technology, and women's entrepreneurship. For African leaders, the goal is not only to diversify economic partnership, but also to stimulate the creation of local value chains, particularly in agro-industry and renewable energy. Ankara, for its part, views the African market with 1.4 consumers as a strategic opportunity to boost exports and invest in high-potential sectors.
Companies are ready to work on solar, wind, hybrid solution, microgrids, and storage. Turkey's engineering expertise and financing capability can also help transform this potential into a global competitive advantage for the
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan highlighted the historical ties between his country and the African continent, while praising the progress made over the past 20 years with $15 billion in direct investment, over 2,000 projects totaling $97 billion, and the creation of 100,000 jobs for Africans. Turkey positioned itself as a reliable and sustainable economic partner.
Rencontre s'est tenue en marge des travaux.
This meeting took place alongside the 5th edition of the Turkey African Economic and Business Forum. We hope that this meeting marks the start of a process that will lead to stronger and more dynamic cooperation.
Le point de départ d'un processus qui va déboucher sur une coopération renforcée et plus dynamique.
Beyond the figures, the African-Turkey partnership is opening up promising opportunities for both sides. With a gross national income of over $3.5 trillion and a young dynamic population, Africa is set to play a central role in the global economy of the future. Joint projects between the two partners are positioning this collaboration as a model for South-South cooperation.
From November 4th to 6, 2025, the city of Dakar, Senegal will host the 8th edition of the Senegal International Mining Fair, a biennial event dedicated to the mining sector in West Africa. This edition will focus on the Senegalese government's strategic priorities for mining development. The fair will bring together investors, institutions, and international experts through conferences, exhibitions, and exchanges on innovative solutions for a sustainable and inclusive mining sector. From December 2nd to 4th, 2025, Nouakchott, Mauritania will host the 2nd edition of the Mauritania International Herb Fair, a major event focused on innovation and sustainability in the African herb sector. This edition will highlight artificial intelligence applied to medicine, robotic surgery, advances in cancer treatment, and medical skills development. The fair will gather exhibitors, policymakers, healthcare professionals, and investors through conferences, demonstrations, and B2B meetings to promote partnerships, innovation, and investment in Africa's healthcare sector. From December 2nd to 4th, 2025, Bamako, Mali will host the OIC Investment Forum in Africa, a flagship event dedicated to promoting trade and investment among African member states of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. This edition will focus on strengthening public-private partnerships, developing SMEs, promoting youth entrepreneurship and women's economic empowerment, and leveraging Africa's potential in key sectors such as agribusiness, mining, renewable energy, and infrastructure.
As Africa continues to rise, the road to peace and stability remains both a challenge and a necessity. Today's discussion reaffirms one truth. Security is not just the absence of conflict, but the presence of justice, inclusion, and opportunity. Through stronger institutions, regional cooperation, and the unwavering spirit of our people, Africa can resolve its conflict and secure its future. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, let us remember, silence the guns. It's not just a slogan, it is a responsibility. It was the African Union Journal. Thank you for being with us all through.
On Africa 24 English, the African Union Journal is presented to you by Afrexim Bank.